Welcome back to the Junius Malpe channel for another historic coin series. Today we will take a look at the ancient Greek gold stater. Now the coin I opened the video with is an original. This is a real ancient Greece gold stater. Today what we will be looking at, and what the coin I'll be handling, is a reproduction, a museum quality reproduction that is gold plated. It's a little bit lighter than, of course, if it was real gold. It's not as dense. And it represents a gold stater that would have existed and circulated from about 322 to about 317 BC. Now, as I've said, many of the coins we will be looking at in this series will be originals. However, coins such as this that command a price of approximately $10,000 at times for a coin in this condition, graded, slabbed, authentic, would be prohibitively expensive for me to acquire, to be able to present to you guys on the channel. So I have decided to use these museum quality pieces that were generously dedicated to the channel and donated by one of you, a benefactor of this channel. So let's take a look at this gold stater. Let's read about them. They're incredible. The history surrounding this coin and its roots in Western civilization as sound money really laid the groundwork for the centuries of money that would follow it. The gold stater here features on the obverse the head of Athena wearing a Corinthian helmet. On the reverse, a winged goddess Nike, the goddess of victory, standing, holding a wreath and a stylus. In front field, thunderbolt and a monogram below. Alexander behind Nike in Greek is written. The year was 320 BC, known by the Phoenicians as the year 26-year-old Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia and Greece, had recently passed away. On his deathbed, he was asked by his generals who should take his place, and his last words were toi kratestoi, to the strongest, of course. He could have uttered the similar sounding words toi Craterus, as Craterus was one of his favorite generals. But since Craterus wasn't present when Alexander mumbled his last command, the words were interpreted by the generals present as command, meaning it was every man for himself in a free-for-all to control Alexander's far-flung empire. This early posthumous gold stater was minted in the Phoenician city of Tyre, or Ake, as it was also called, and is marked with the date from their calendars, 26. It features Athena on the obverse and Nike on the reverse, beside the legend of Alexander. Tyre had been conquered by Alexander in 332 BC and remained under Greek control during the Hellenistic period for more than 200 years. From the time he ascended to the throne until his death, Alexander led an unprecedented military campaign, considered by experts as the world's most successful military campaign ever. His armies swept down through Egypt and then circled back through the east, taking territory the entire time, all the way to the borders of India. Alexander's armies defeated every army it faced for 13 years. His reign was short-lived. However, he died at Babylon in 323 BC while traveling home. He was just 33. Let's read a brief overview regarding Macedon. The kingdom of Macedon was considered a barbaric place by cultivated Greeks of Attica, such as the Athenians, and the Peloponnese, such as the Spartans, to the south. In fact, a certain king of Macedon named Alexander I, who ruled approximately from 498 to 454 BC, wasn't even allowed to participate in the Olympic Games until judges issued a formal decision that the Macedonians were Greek in the first place. The people spoke a dialect of the Greek language and shared many of the same cultural and religious practices, including money and the worship of the Olympian gods, though both tended to be archaic compared to the city-states of southern Greece. Cattle and horses were important sources of wealth and prestige to the Macedonians. The name Philip, meaning fond of horses, comes from Macedon. With the arrival of Philip II and his military innovations, the kingdom began its conquest of the south. His son, Alexander III, better known as Alexander the Great, finished the job, uniting all the Greeks under one rule. Alexander then went on to conquer the Persian Empire and parts of Afghanistan and India, as we just read, creating the largest empire the world had yet seen and ushering in the Hellenistic age. Macedon fell in the battle to the Roman Republic in 168. The same year, the Romans took control of the rest of Greece. The kingdom enjoyed a brief 2-year independence from 150 to 148 BC before it was folded into the province of Macedonia. Philip II was the king of Macedon during the second half of the 4th century BC, from 359 to 336. He was a member of the long-running Argead dynasty, which had ruled the kingdom for its almost 450-year existence by the time of his reign. Unlike previous Macedonian kings, like the aforementioned Alexander I, who had earned the respect of the Greeks for his performance at the Olympic Games, Philip was able and willing to enforce his dominance over the more civilized peoples in the traditional regions of ancient Greece. What made this possible was the development and use of the superior Macedonian phalanx, a disciplined rectangular arrangement of lightly armed infantrymen, whose forward motion, enabled by the invention of the hoplite, a kind of Greek shield, was enough to throw most other armies off balance. After a period of Macedonian political dominance, Philip finally defeated Athens, who had long been weary of the Macedonian threat to the north, as well as the city of Thebes at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC. This allowed Philip to create yet another confederation of Greek city-states called the League of Corinth, of which Philip was in complete control. He was assassinated by a member of his own bodyguard before he could embark on a planned invasion of the Persian Empire, an invasion that was left to his son and heir, Alexander the Great. This coin was struck posthumously in his honor circa 322 to 317 BC. Now let's read more regarding the stater. The origin of the monetary unit known as a stater, the Greek word for weight, goes back to the Phoenician shekel, a Semitic word for weight. Staters began circulating among the cities of Greece in the 8th century BC and did not cease production until the Common Era. The first known Greek stater coin, previous versions were ingots, was made of electrum and came from Aegina, an island located between Attica and the Peloponnese. Many different cities issued their own versions of the coin. According to Robin Lane Fox, the stater as a unit was borrowed by the Euboean stater, weighing 16.8 grams, or the Euboean stater. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Euboean. Again, it was weighing 16.8 grams, or 0.59 ounces, from the Phoenician shekel, which had about the same weight as a stater, 7 grams, or 0.25 ounces, and was also 1/50th of a mina. The silver stater minted at Corinth, of 8.6 grams, or 0.30, a third of an ounce, weight, was divided into 3 silver drachma, 2.9 grams, or a tenth of an ounce, and was often linked to the Athenian silver didrachm, 2 drachma essentially, weighing 8.6 grams, or a third of an ounce. In comparison, the Athenian silver tetradrachm, or 4 drachma, weighed 17.2 grams, or 0.61 ounces. Staters were also struck in several Greek city-states, such as Aegina, Aspendos, Delphi, Knossos, and Cydonia. Many city-states of Ionia, Lampsacus, Megalopus, Metapontium, Olympia, Phaistos, Poseidonia, Syracuse, Taras, Thasos, and Thebes, and more. There also existed this gold stater here that we're looking at, but it was only minted in some places and was mainly an accounting unit worth approximately 20 to 28 drachma, depending on place and time. The Athenian unit being worth around 20 drachma. So that gives you an idea of what this represented. It represented about, again, like we just reviewed recently, and we're going to do further reviews of when it comes to looking at the drachma coins, the silver drachma, which was obviously circulated more commonly among the people because, again, it was silver. It wasn't. The gold was reserved for larger projects, huge projects when it came to buildings or ships, building a trireme or funding a military expedition. It was a piece of wealth that wasn't transacted with at the street level as commonly as the silver was. So when you look at this gold stater, realize it's representing its unit worth being around 20 to 28 drachma. And those were those littler silver coins that we've talked about. So if a tetradrachma is about 4, if it represents around 4 drachmas, this would represent around 5 of the tetradrachma, the larger silver coins, if that makes sense. Because again, it varies again because the weight 20 to 28, and drachmas being its value. And again, it depends upon the time, the place in the region, in the empire, and of course, where in the several hundred years it existed are you dealing with the economic transactions during that time. Now, the reason being that one gold stater generally weighed roughly 8.5 grams, or a third of an ounce, twice as much as a drachma, while the parity of gold to silver, after some variance, was established as about 1 to 10 back then. So for those of you that are really good at reviewing the history of the gold-silver ratios over time, now back then it was approximately 1 to 10. And that's a pretty narrow gold-silver ratio, isn't it? The use of gold staters in coinage seems mostly of Macedonian origin. The best-known types of Greek gold staters are the 28 drachma kaizekonai from Cyzicus. Now there's also non-Greek staters. Just to show you the influence that this coin had on civilization, Celtic tribes brought the concept to Western and Central Europe after obtaining it while serving as mercenaries in northern Greece. Gold staters were minted in Gaul by Gallic chiefs, modeled after those of Philip II of Macedonia, which were brought back after serving in his armies, or those of Alexander and his successors. Now, some of these staters, in the form of the Gallo-Belgic series, were imported to Britain on a large scale. These went on to influence a range of staters produced in Britain. British gold staters generally weighed between 4.5 to 6.5 grams, or 0.16 to 0.23 ounces, which is interesting. Think about it, because the British sovereign, the pound of sterling, the gold coin that was known as the standard in Britain, ended up being 0.2354 ounces of gold. And it's essentially an identical unit. It's just got a different face stamped on it, a different reverse. A little bit of mythology on one side, and a king on the other. It's very incredible. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that gets me going. The coinage dates back so far, essentially since the beginning of history. Now, Celtic staters were also minted in present-day Czech Republic and in Poland. Oh, my wife's going to love that. A little Polish girl that she is. The conquests of Alexander extended Greek culture east, leading to the adoption of staters in Asia. Gold staters have also been found from the ancient region of Gandhara, from the time of Kanishka. In 2018, archaeologists in Podzemlje, Slovenia, unearthed 15 graves at the Pezderkva Nijiva, I'm not pronouncing any of this right, Pezderkva Nivia site. In one of the graves, they found a bronze belt with a gold coin. The coin was a Celtic imitation of the Alexander the Great stater depicting Nike and Athena, and dates back to the first half of the 3rd century BC. So there you have it. Incredible coin that really and truly influenced the history of essentially all gold coins from this point forward that we're looking at. I'd say this was the gold coin that essentially started the history of gold coins as we know it. So what better place to start than here? Now another stater we have to discuss is the Distater. So two staters, this one from 332 to 323 BC, also a gold-plated museum quality replica, another copy. And you're going to see a lot of similarities. You know, the obverse has the head of Athena wearing the Corinthian helmet. The reverse, again, the winged goddess Nike standing left holding a wreath and a stylus in front field, thunderbolt, and a monogram below with Alexander behind Nike in Greek. And you can see it written there. That is the word for Alexander on the back there behind Nike. Diameter on this coin a little larger, is 23 millimeters. Again, very similar. The sizes of these is essentially identical to the originals. So all the specifications are the same, and then they're just gold plated. So again, the coin's much lighter than it would be if it were solid, pure, you know, not pure gold. Of course, they weren't 24 karat back then. They were most likely in the 90+% range. I'm guessing probably around 92% maybe. Now, an original Kings of Macedon, Alexander the Great Distater, like this, struck in 336 to 323 BC. There are specimens available, real ones that you could purchase if you were somebody of significant wealth. Now, the AV Distater measures very similar to this. Again, it's about 22 millimeters. However, they weigh approximately 17.19 grams. From the Agai Mint. Now, these were lifetime issues struck under Antipater, circa 332 to 332 BC. And as we discussed, you've got the head of Athena wearing the crested Corinthian helmet on the obverse, and then the reverse, again, Alexander, Nike, the wreath. Her hand is extended and cradling the stylus in the left arm, vertical thunderbolt in the left field, with the AO monogram below the left wing. Again, these are extremely expensive. There are not many of these out there. These are very rare to find an original, certified, authentic, graded coin of these types, and they're superb. Again, these weren't circulated that much, so you'll find them when you do. And there are some of these available online, and I would encourage you to go look at them. They're remarkable just to see the originals and the detail, the skill that these people had to carve dies. You know, if you've ever seen a die and how they carve them, it's difficult. I mean, remember when we had a coin on this channel minted? Everything has to be mirrored, negative, and reversed, engraved into the surface of the die to where when it's punching the gold, you have this three-dimensional relief that pops off of the coin, as you see, and it's art. It's an incredible form of art. Now, Alexander's Distaters were the heaviest gold coins produced by the Greeks up to that time. They were probably coined as part of a larger donative issue with associated fractional denominations and a corresponding issue in the name of Philip II, Alexander's father. The Distater was probably coined to bolster support for Alexander's succession as the ruling sovereign. The iconography of Alexander's gold coinage, in particular the Distater and Stater, reflects his desire to unite the Hellenic world against the common foe, the Persians. The war goddess Athena wears the Corinthian helmet, which may represent the League of Corinth, the federal organization of Greek city-states led by Alexander and originated by his father, Philip II. The figure of Nike, with her naval standard, may be another type intended to unify the Greeks against the Persians, as it may commemorate the great victory over the Persian naval force at the Battle of Salamis in 480 BC. So again, you imagine these people didn't have a whole lot to base their coinage on like we do today. We're looking back on over 2,000 years of human history, and it wasn't very difficult for us to come up with our coin designs because, as you can see here, you've got a lot of symbolism. You've got a head, oftentimes a mythical figure. I mean, just look at U.S. coinage from its inception. Uh, Often present was the goddess Liberty. Very similar to Greek and Roman coinage, there was a goddess present on the coin, trying to instill some type of belief, a value of some type of an ideology, a unification, and even on the reverse, oftentimes a lot of symbolism and ideas passed on to kind of unify the country or the nation and just broadcast a message. And that's, again, why coinage, I mean, it lasts forever. It's carrying that message to us today. If you look at and handle a gold stater or a distater today, you're seeing the same message that the ancient Greeks wanted to pass on. And you're able to, again, back then, a lot of people were illiterate. They might not know exactly what was trying to be passed on, but they could perhaps glean something from just the images on the coin, and word of mouth would travel and travel with the coin. I'm sure it raised questions in parts of the kingdom at those times. You know, the primitive people that might have been living in the outlying regions that didn't know certain ideas or what news what needed to be passed on from certain accomplishments. Well, the coin may have carried that message to them. And I think that's just something to consider. It's incredible. And again, it always reminds me and rekindles my interest in coinage dating back to this time period up until present time. Now, when it comes to the purchasing strength, the purchasing power of this coin, we'll get to that in a moment. But let's first look at, you know, the stater, the distater, and then the most recent drachma that we looked at, just so you can get kind of a size comparison and get an idea, you know, how big were these coins compared to one another. Now, these are the three coins that we've so far discussed. You can see the drachma to the left, the stater there in the middle, and the distater on the right there. I'll give you an idea of just the size comparisons of these coins. And of course, the drachma being silver, the other two being gold, carrying significant differences in purchasing strength. You know, the stater, as we read and discussed moments ago, around 20 to 28 drachmas in value. That makes sense mathematically that the distater would then be approximately 40 to 56 drachmas in value. So that distater was, I mean, imagine back then something that carried approximately 50 or so drachmas worth of value. A lot of value just in that distater there. How expensive was life in ancient Greece? We've discussed a little bit about the monetary system, and in the last video discussing the drachma, we covered a lot of the prices for goods and services, and I think it's important to just continue to review those and pay attention to what these metals purchased at the time. Well, the monetary system of Athens had a base, as you know, the drachma of Attica. It consisted of silver and weighed approximately 4.36 grams. Ovolos was the division of the drachma, or ovali. 6 ovali made 1 drachma. Now, there were also coins that were worth more than a drachma, like the decadrachman, 10 drachmas, the minae, 100 drachmas, and the talenton, 600 minae. And we'll get into some of these other coins later on, especially like the larger tetradrachma. Now, here's the prices my friends here on the channel can relate to. In order to eat a pork steak, you would need 1 Athenian drachma. For a loaf of bread, you would need to pay 1 ovolos. 1 drachma was also the daily salary of an unskilled worker. Skilled workers, like a sculptor, doctors, well, they could make up to 6 drachmas a day. To purchase land and a house in Amphipolis, it would cost 12 staters. So now that's where you get the gold values, and how, you know, as you can see, gold was used for these bigger purchases like real estate, like property. So 12 staters for land and a house. Now, according to this article, it says here that the staters they're referring to weighed approximately 8.6 to 8.75 grams. We covered those measurements briefly earlier. And now if you wanted to buy just a house, it says it would cost around 800 drachmas. Generally, house prices varied from 400 to 1,000 drachmas. And as we discussed earlier, a stater represented approximately 20 to 28 drachmas. Another interesting piece of information I came across in reading and researching all of this was that a merchant usually only took coins from their own city. So if you were a visitor had to find a money changer to exchange their coins. Typically, there was a 5 or a 6% fee charged to exchange into this foreign currency to a local currency. So even if you had, I guess, drachmas stamped from another city-state or another part of Greece, you would have to exchange them for the local one when you arrived and were staying or purchasing things. And then there was somebody there to charge you like the 5 or 6%, the money changer. Now, Athens used a currency, as we've discussed, known as the drachma. Their currency was widely used because of the large trade network that they developed. Often, an Athenian coin could be used in other Greek cities and not have to be exchanged for the local currency. Now, the Athenian monetary system was set up in the following ways. As we've discussed earlier, the drachma was worth 6 obols. There was 100 drachma for a mina, 600 mina for a talent. And, you should be familiar with the word talent because it's throughout the New Testament of the Bible. It discusses talents of silver. Now, and that was the equivalent of about 57 pounds of silver. So imagine that when you hear a talent of silver, 57 pounds of silver. It's a lot of wealth. Now, a worker in Athens would earn anywhere from 1 to 2 drachmas a day. We discussed the 1 drachma for an unskilled worker. The more skilled workers, approximately 2 drachmas a day. Sculptors and doctors making up to 6 drachmas a day. And some even of the very low skilled workers would only get about half of a drachma for a day's work. There was a pay scale depending upon your skill set and the need for your services. Now, the typical cost of goods in this other piece that I was reading is that a loaf of bread was about an obol. A lamb, so a whole lamb, I'm guessing alive on the hoof, 8 drachmas. A gallon of olive oil, 5 drachmas. Shoes are about 8 to 12 drachmas. We saw in another piece that some custom-made and very well-made shoes could be even more than that. They could be measured in staters. And as you know, a gold stater, one, could be about 20 to 28 drachmas in value. So the shoes, again, a lot of people were shoeless this time period in history, were very expensive. A slave could cost anywhere from 2 to 300 drachmas, and as we just discussed moments ago, a house could be 400 to 1,000 drachmas. And it depended upon what land it came with, what part of the region it was in. I'm sure there was more desirable real estate, just like there is today. So again, that's the discussion on the staters. A little bit more review on the drachmas. A lot of history discussed today. Thanks for being here. I'm having a really fun time putting these together and learning right alongside you. I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time on ancient coinage, and this is a journey that I'm going to have a very fun time experiencing as we explore the roots and origins of coinage itself, dating back to the beginning of Western civilization. Thanks for tuning in, all of you, and have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you on the next video.